If you've been dealing with chronic symptoms for a long time, you know how frustrating it can be when all tests come back quote unquote normal, but you're not feeling normal at all. You may be struggling with symptoms like brain fog, fatigue, mood changes, memory issues, dizziness, headaches, or feeling like you're just not functioning the way you used to. And often, even after a lot of standard testing, blood work scans, doctor visits, everything still comes back looking normal. But what if I told you that your intuition may be right and that many of these symptoms can still be rooted in real physical changes? What if I told you that you can track physical changes in your brain that can explain those symptoms? Sometimes those changes are very subtle and not visible to the naked eye. That's why you may get an MRI and be told that nothing is wrong with your brain. This is where NeuroQuant can be extremely valuable. It can detect changes that are often not reflected in your standard radiology report. NeuroQuant is a special type of software that works alongside a standard brain MRI. It does not require a new machine or a contrast dye or anything invasive. You simply get a regular brain MRI, and NeuroQuant adds another layer of information. Instead of only looking at the brain visually, NeuroQuant measures the size of different brain regions and compares them to what is typical for someone of your age and sex. In simple terms, it helps turn the MRI into something more measurable, allowing us to see patterns that may not be obvious just by looking at a standard MRI image. It gives clinicians more objective data and it gives patients more clarity. NeuroQuant can be helpful in a few different situations. It is often used in well known neurological conditions such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, or brain injury. But one of the most important situations is actually much more common when you, as a patient, is clearly struggling, but then your medical assessments come back as normal. Your radiologist and neurologist don't see anything overtly abnormal, and yet you still feel unwell cognitively, emotionally, and physically. This is one of the hardest experiences for us patients. You know something is wrong. Your doctor may also know something is wrong, but the tests just don't provide the validation or explanation you need to move forward with confidence. NeuroQuant can help fill that gap by providing additional objective insight. Many chronic illnesses can affect the brain in ways that are not dramatic or obvious in a traditional MRI scan. Instead, they may affect the brain in a more subtle way through inflammation, immune overactivation, metabolic stress, infections, or environmental exposures. Over time, these factors can impact brain structure in ways that are invisible to the naked eye. In fact, research has shown measurable brain changes in a wide range of chronic conditions, including mild brain injury or concussion, autoimmune disorders like celiac and multiple sclerosis, neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD and autism, mental health disorders such as anxiety, depression, personality disorders, eating disorders, and psychotic disorders, chronic infections such as Lyme disease and viral infections, chronic fatigue syndrome, long COVID, and environmentally acquired inflammatory illnesses such as chronic inflammatory response syndrome, also known as SIRS or biotoxin illness or mold related illness. NeuroQuant does not prove the cause of symptoms on its own, but it can help reveal patterns that match what you are experiencing and provide a more grounded way to think about brain health over time. It's important to understand what NeuroQuant is and what it is not. NeuroQuant is not a diagnosis by itself. It doesn't label you with a disease and it doesn't replace your doctor or your medical care. Instead, NeuroQuant is a support tool. an additional layer of objective information that can help bring clarity when your symptoms have been difficult to explain and when the usual tests haven't provided answers. For many patients, the deepest value of NeuroQuant is validation, because so many people living with chronic illness know what it feels like to suffer in silence, to feel something is wrong in your body and brain, but to be told again and again, everything looks normal. Your MRI is fine. We don't see anything. It's probably anxiety or stress. And after a while, it can start to feel like you're not only fighting the illness, you're starting to fight to be believed. NeuroQuant can help change that experience by offering measurable quantitative insight. It can provide reassurance that what you are going through is real, that your symptoms are not imagined, not exaggerated, and not dismissed simply because they don't show up clearly on a standard report. And beyond validation, it can also be empowering, because when you finally have information that reflects your lived experience, you can begin to move forward with more clarity, more confidence, and more intention. NeuroQuant helps create a stronger foundation for informed decision making about healing, treatment options, and about long term brain health protection. For us patients, it represents something we have been missing for a long time: a clearer picture, a more grounded path forward, and hope that our suffering can finally be understood. One of the most hopeful aspects of NeuroQuant is that it can be used not only for assessment, but also for tracking progress. The reality is, we're entering a new era of medicine where neurodegeneration is becoming more and more optional. The brain can heal, the brain can change, and many interventions today can support recovery through things like reducing inflammation, supporting metabolism, improving neurological function, and encouraging neuroplasticity. NeuroQuant allows clinicians to monitor brain related changes over time, which can help guide treatment decisions and long term planning. It can help you become more proactive, not just reacting when something is severe, but protecting your brain early on before neurodegeneration ever takes place. NeuroQuant includes a few different reports, and each one helps answer a slightly different question about your brain. The morphometry report gives a general overview of key brain regions. Right now, this is the primary report used to assess the brain volume patterns that have been associated with SIRS and exposure to water damaged buildings. Another important report is the triage brain atrophy or TBA report. This one looks at many more brain structures in higher detail. It can be especially helpful for identifying possible comorbidities, other conditions that may overlap with SIRS, but that can also uniquely contribute to abnormal brain volumes. One of the most useful parts of the TBA report is that it compares each brain region to healthy people of your age and sex, so clinicians can see where volumes fall relative to what's expected. NeuroQuant also includes supportive reports like the dementia and seizure reports, which take a closer look at the hippocampus, brain region involved in things like memory, learning, stress response, and emotional regulation. Taken together, these reports give your medical team more objective insight, especially when symptoms are real, but standard imaging doesn't provide clear answers. If you are interested in NeuroQuant, we, Source Lab, can help you access the reports and understand what they mean in a clear and supportive way. There are two main ways we can help patients obtain NeuroQuant results. The first option is very simple and flexible. You can schedule a standard brain MRI without contrast at a local imaging facility. Before your scan, you reach out to us and we provide specific instructions that the MRI technicians can apply so the images are captured correctly for NeuroQuant. After the MRI, the facility can give you the raw imaging files, also known as DICOM files, which can then be securely sent to us. Once we receive them, we generate the full NeuroQuant reports for you. This option is especially helpful because it allows many patients to use local centers, often with the possibility of insurance coverage. The second option applies to people who already have a NeuroQuant report but need it generated in a specific software version. This matters especially if you're a SIRS patient because much of the clinical interpretation criteria is based on earlier NeuroQuant versions, particularly version 3. Many imaging centers now use newer versions that may not populate the same outputs needed for SIRS-based assessment. We can convert and regenerate your reports in the appropriate format when needed. MRI facilities can be inconsistent in which NeuroQuant reports they provide. We ensure that you receive a complete set, including morphometry, TBA, dementia, and seizure reports. This provides a much more comprehensive picture of your brain. If you have been chronically ill and felt like your symptoms were invisible on paper, you are not alone. NeuroQuant is one of those tools helping modern medicine move forward, especially for patients who don't look abnormal on standard testing but clearly aren't well. It does not replace clinical care. It does not replace your doctor, but it can help provide clarity, validation, and a more objective way to think about brain health over time. It can help you start thinking about your brain earlier, not just when something is clearly wrong, but as part of long-term protection and healing. This is the direction brain-based medicine is moving. And in the future, tools like NeuroQuant will play an increasingly important role in how we understand, monitor, and support recovery in chronic illness.